History 101, Lecture 16, 19th Century Reform. This part we're talking about utopian societies. Utopian societies are an interesting aspect of 19th century society. As American society develops in the early 19th century, Lecture 11, you see Americans coming together. What is an American? We're defining it. Some look at what's developed and go, it can't be reformed. We have to develop new societies, new ways of doing things. And so utopian societies in the early 19th century are a big part of this 19th century era of reform. As some Americans look at society and they go, it's greedy, it's evil, it's corrupt, too drunk. And so you want to experiment with new orders of things. And what's interesting about that too, Lecture 12, the Industrial Revolution. What's happening in America economically? America's industrializing, right? We're seeing the very beginnings, the birth of kind of what you would call a class system, right? Rich and poor. Not that there weren't rich and poor in colonial America, but the Industrial Revolution is going to develop a middle class. You can start pulling apart the distance, the economic distance between rich and poor, and so so it's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that as American society industrializes economically, that you have some critiquing that market development, that economic development. And so you have some utopian societies develop around this idea of the economy. You have, again, religious utopian societies. It's not a coincidence that as 19th century Americans are rejecting 18th century Calvinism and exploring new ideas and different ideas, non-traditional ideas, that they would start questioning, you start having religious utopias. It's not a coincidence that these all kind of develop together, right? Even though they're different, they're ripped apart, they're split apart into different lectures and chapters. It's not a coincidence; they all work together, right? It's like a puzzle. You say this early 19th century is all like a puzzle, where they all fit together, and you see the development of American culture, right? So we're going to talk about some examples here. Here's a map showing where a lot of them are. You can press pause if you want to look at the map longer, but you can see this map. The first group we're going to talk about is the Oneida Colony or community, 1848, founded by a guy named John H. Noyes. Here's the millennialist. Here's the millennialist. How much of a millennialist? Guess what John Noyes said? Christ had already come. Christ had already come, and so we don't need to follow the social order of the past or the moral order of the past. So kind of an interesting look there, right? Christ has already come. So when Christ was alive on earth the first time, right? What did he say? He said, "I've fulfilled the law of Moses." We don't need to follow the law of Moses anymore. It's a new social order, a new order, Christian theology, or what Christ taught. And so Noyes is saying the same thing, kind of, Christ has come again. So it's changed. It's changed the order. It's changed the social order of the past. So here you have it again. He experimented in complex marriages, is what they called it. You and I would call it something different. We would call it 1960s, we'd call it free love. It's just the idea, it's a community, a communal society. What does that mean? Communal society. Okay. You're sharing everything. You work as a community. So, connect that to complex marriages. Everyone's married to everyone, kind of a thing. Eugenics, social engineering, and meaning, we were going to procreate within the community to develop a new society. You get it? So we're not going to go outside the community for our sexual partners, right? We're going to have children with people within the community, and that way you social engineer, you have children that look like or were within your community. So that's kind of what eugenics is where you you're trying to control society's development through procreation, like how, we want society to look and be a certain way, so you control who people procreate with. They made and sold steel traps and silverware. So, like every communal society in the 19th century, utopian society, you had to support yourself. That was one of the goals, was to support yourself, to not participate in the capitalist market economy of the U.S. economy at large. And so you see with a lot of these utopian groups, this attempt to be self-sufficient economically, to not participate in the market economy, the capitalist market economy that's developing in the 19th century. And so John H. Noyes is kind of a big part of that. He runs afoul of blue laws, the complex marriages. I'm just going to end that issue. But anyway, so the United Community kind of really fits in this idea of these utopian societies, what they are, right? Millennialism, crisis come, we got to have a new social order. We're going to be a communal society, separate from the larger community, even economically, right? The industrial market economy is developing. We need to separate from it, be self-sufficient. Experiment with new social orders of marriage. Same thing. Robert Owens, what I just talked about, the development of this kind of, separating from the market economy. Robert Owens, he called his villages of cooperation. Villages. He was what you call a utopian socialist, kind of along these French revolutionary ideas, eventually devolving into Karl Marx. This idea of these utopian socialists. Village of cooperation. Where America is seen as too individualistic, too greedy, too market-driven, too profit-driven, too this, too that, too everything, too drunk. And so his main base, the main New Harmony, Indiana. You get it? Harmony, New Harmony. Villages of cooperation. We want to cooperate and have this communal society. George Ripley, another example of a utopian group. George Ripley was a writer, a transcendentalist writer, philosopher. He sets up Brook Farm in West Roxbury, Massachusetts. Today, a suburb of Boston. Today, a suburb of Boston. Back then, a farm. Back then, very rural, West Roxbury, Massachusetts. Brook Farm the goal was to bring together the intellectuals of the era, the writers, the philosophers, the playwrights, the thinkers. They're all going to live on a farm and live in this communal society of thinkers, where they could think away from the city, away from the urban, nightmare of the early 19th century, I guess. This is kind of funny is men like Ralph Waldo Emerson, Ripley, they looked at 19th century urban life the same way we do, but 21st century urban life. Crime, pollution, cement jungle, all this bad stuff. And what's funny about that is we look at 19th century cities and they're practically rural. What are you complaining about? So it is kind of funny to read Ralph Waldo Emerson's critique of cities in the 19th century, and we're like, who's going to tell him? Who's gonna go back to the 19th century and share with Ralph Waldo Emerson what cities in the 21st century look like? He would have a cow, and so he would be like, it's not that bad, maybe. And so that's what's funny. There's similar critiques, and so that's the point of the Brook Farm is bring people together, bring these out of the urban American culture, bring them to a farm and where we can think. Okay, transcendentalist thinkers, writers. The farm burns down. So, unfortunate. But anyway, so there's an example of utopian society. We're trying to live communally, on a farm where we can grow our own food, right? Grow our own food, make our own clothes, right? Chop down our own trees to make fire, and that's the fire. So. Shakers, we've already talked about Shakers, but same thing. This utopian society. American society is too insects, too complicated. Return to a simpler, early Christian form of life. So Shakers are a part of that as well. We talked about Mormons. Sorry, I've been doing these videos for 8 hours today. I'm a little tired. Mormons. We talked about Mormons before. Mormons set up a utopian society in Nauvoo, Illinois. It's right on the banks of the Mississippi River. It's still a town today. You can go to it. It's still a town today. It's not Mormon, but it's still a town today. Mormons fleeing persecution in New York. Get my accent right. Ohio, Missouri, fleeing persecution, come and set up in this new city called Nauvoo, Illinois. Several years, 1839 to 1846, you have a communal society. It's supposed to be the gathering place. If you joined the Mormon Church or the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the 1840s, you were supposed to come to Nauvoo. So, like, if you were in England, like the Mormon Church sent missionaries to England. Joseph Smith sent missionaries to England. So if you joined the church in England during the 1840s, you were supposed to, once you got baptized, you then were supposed to gather. Because why? We're gathering Israel. We're gathering the kingdom of God on earth. We're establishing Zion. And so you're supposed to come and gather with the saints. And then so I'm not going to talk about it more, just as an aside, when Brigham Young led most of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to Utah, it was the same idea in the 19th century. If you joined the church in the 19th century back east or Canada or England or anywhere else, you were supposed to come to Zion, come to Utah. Utah's not Zion, it's Missouri, but anyway, I don't want Utah to get too big of a head. Missouri, Jackson County, Missouri is Zion, but anyways, a little inside joke for you. But, the point of the 19th century, come to Zion, come gather with the saints, right? At one point, Nauvoo was the largest city in Illinois, even bigger than Chicago at one point. Had its own militia, and Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the 19th century experimented with a new social order, polygamy, having more than one wife. Joseph will be martyred, renewed persecution, and that's in 1846-47. That's when you'll have most Mormons, around 20,000, 20,000, head west to Salt Lake City.